The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched beyond what human eyes could easily see. Kate Morrison stood at the center of it all, her hands clasped behind her back as she waited for the final vote. Around her, beings from across the galaxy sat in their designated spots. Some looked like giant crystals that hummed with inner light. Others were tall reptiles with scales that changed colors based on their moods. A few existed as clouds of gas held together by energy fields, speaking, through machines that turned their thoughts into words. For 50 years, humanity had been part of this council. They had followed every rule, signed every treaty, and helped keep peace between species that had been fighting for thousands of years. Kate had spent the last 10 years as Earth's main representative, working day and night to prove that humans deserved their place among the stars. But today felt different. The whispers had been growing louder for months. Other species complained that humans built too many ships, explored too many worlds, and asked too many questions. They said humanity was dangerous, that they moved too fast and wanted too much. The voting crystals floated in the air above each delegate. One by one, they began to glow. Red meant yes to the proposal. Blue meant no. Green meant they chose not to vote at all. Kate watched as more and more crystals turned red. Her heart sank. With each new light, Prime Arbiter. Zeftar rose from his seat at the front of the hall. He was one of the Eternal Ones, a species so old that they claimed to remember the birth of stars. His voice echoed through the chamber without need for translation devices. "The vote is complete," he announced. 847 votes in favor. 3 abstentions, 0 votes against. By the ancient laws of this council, the human species is hereby expelled from membership, effective immediately. Kate felt the blood drain from her face, but she kept her expression calm. She had been a diplomat too long to show weakness now. Around the hall, she could see some delegates looking uncomfortable. A few even seemed sad. But the majority appeared satisfied, as if a troublesome problem had finally been solved. Furthermore, Zeftar continued, all trade agreements with human worlds are canceled. All technology sharing programs are ended. All human ships are banned from entering Council space. This decision cannot be appealed. The Veltari military commander, a large reptile whose scales had turned a dark green color, stood up next. "The human expansion concerns us greatly," he said through his translator. "No peaceful species builds warships at the rate humanity does. Your military grows stronger each year. This suggests plans for conquest." Kate stepped forward, her voice clear and strong despite the anger building inside her. "Commander Velnok, humanity has never attacked a council member. We have helped end 3 major wars and stopped 2 attempts at genocide. Our ships exist to protect our colonies and trade routes, nothing more." "Your colonies," hissed another voice from across the hall. This came from Representative Kixara of the Hive Minds. "You spread across space faster than any species in recorded history. You claim world after world, system after system. How long before you decide council space belongs to you as well?" "We explore because that is our nature," Kate replied. "We seek new knowledge, new friends, new possibilities. Is curiosity now a crime?" Zeftar raised one of his many arms for silence. "The decision has been made. Humanity's aggressive expansion, rapid military buildup, and unpredictable nature make them unsuitable for continued membership. You have 24 hours to leave council space." As Kate walked toward the exit, her mind was already working on what came next. She had expected. This day might come. So had many others back on Earth. Captain Ryan Blake, head of Earth's Defense Force, had been preparing for exactly this situation. They called it Protocol 7. The shuttle ride back to Earth seemed longer than usual. Kate stared out the window, at the stars, thinking about everything humanity had given up to be part of the Council. They had agreed to limit their technology research, to ask permission before exploring certain areas of space, to share their discoveries freely while receiving little in return. When she finally reached Earth, Kate went straight to the Defense Command Center in Geneva. Captain Blake was waiting for her, along with President Jack Coleman and Dr. Lisa Ford, the head of Earth's research programs. "How bad is it?" Blake asked as soon as she entered the room. "Complete expulsion," Kate said. "No trade, no technology. Sharing. No access to council space. They're treating us like a disease they need to quarantine." President Coleman shook his head sadly. 50 years of cooperation, and this is how it ends. "Maybe it's for the best," Dr. Ford said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. Think about it. For 50 years, we've been holding ourselves back. Every major research project had to be approved by the council. Every new ship design had to meet their standards. Every colony had to follow their rules. Blake nodded slowly. "She's right. We've been playing by their rules for so long, we forgot what we could do when we play by our own." "What are you suggesting?" the president asked. "Protocol 7, Blake replied. "We've been planning for this possibility for years. Cut all ties with council technology. Recall all our people from council space. Focus everything on our own research and development." Dr. Ford pulled up a holographic display showing Earth's research facilities. "I've been keeping track of all the projects we've had to abandon or delay because of council restrictions. With those limits gone, we could make advances they've never imagined." Kate looked at the display, seeing hundreds of research projects that had been put on hold. New engine designs that could travel faster than anything the council used. Weapon systems, based on principles the council considered too dangerous. Shield technology that could protect entire worlds. "How long would it take," she asked, "to match council technology?" "Maybe 2 years," Dr. Ford said. "To surpass it, 5 years at most." Blake activated his communication system, sending a coded message to every human ship, colony, and outpost in known space. The message was simple but clear. "We're on our own now. Time to show them what humanity can really do." Within hours, the recall began. Human ships left council space, taking with them years of careful observations about council technology and military capabilities. Human diplomats packed up their offices and headed home. Human traders completed their final deals and severed all contracts, but they weren't running away. They were going home to build something better. As Kate stood in the command center, watching reports come in from across human space, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Freedom. For the first time since joining the council, humanity was free to be everything they could become. The council had made a mistake. They thought exile would weaken humanity. Instead, they had just freed the most innovative, determined, and adaptable species in the galaxy to reach their full potential. The exile had begun, but so had humanity's true journey to the stars. 5 years had passed since the day humanity was thrown out of the Galactic Council. The galaxy had grown quiet around human space, and many council members assumed the troublesome species had simply faded away into the darkness between stars. They were wrong. Commander Alex Turner stood on the bridge of the ship called Defiance, watching stars blur past the view screen in ways that should have been impossible. The vessel around him bore no resemblance to the clunky human ships that council patrols used to see. This ship was sleek, fast, and built with technology that made council engineering look like children playing with blocks. "Jump complete, Commander," reported Lieutenant Maya Cross from her station. "We've traveled further in the past hour than council ships can manage in a full day." Turner nodded with satisfaction. While the council had been content to use the same old technology for centuries, humanity had been forced to innovate or die. The exile had pushed them to discover things they never would have found while following council rules. "Any council ships in the area?" Turner asked. "Long-range sensors show nothing, sir. We're completely alone out here." That was exactly what Turner wanted to hear. For 5 years, human ships had vanished from all the known space routes. Council. Patrols that went looking for human colonies found empty space where settlements used to be. What they didn't know was that humanity hadn't disappeared. They had simply learned to hide. Back on Earth, President Jack Coleman stood before the Global Assembly with news that would have seemed like fantasy just a few years earlier. The Great Hall was packed with representatives from every nation and colony, all eager to hear about Project Renaissance. "Ladies and gentlemen," Coleman began, "we are no longer the species that begged for scraps at the council table. In 5 years, we have accomplished what the council couldn't do in 5 centuries. The giant screen behind him lit up with a map of local space. But instead of showing the handful of human worlds the council knew about, it displayed dozens of new settlements. Each one was marked with symbols that indicated massive defensive systems, advanced technology, and thriving populations. "How is this possible?" asked the representative from Mars Colony. "The council cut off all our trade routes and supply lines." Dr. Lisa Ford stepped up to answer. Her hair was whiter now, but her eyes burned with the excitement of someone who had seen the impossible become real. "We stopped depending on council technology entirely. Every breakthrough you see here came from human research, human innovation, human determination." She pressed a button, and the display changed to show technical specifications that made the audience gasp. Ship designs that could travel between stars in hours instead of days. Weapons that could punch through any known shield. Defensive systems that could protect entire planets from attack. But the most important discovery, Dr. Ford continued, came from our exploration teams. Commander Sarah Wells had been leading those exploration missions for 3 years now. Her ship, the Pioneer, had been designed specifically for long range, scouting in areas where no human had ever gone. What she found there changed everything. The first contact had happened in a system so far from Council space that it didn't even appear on their maps. Wells and her crew were investigating a strange energy signature when they encountered ships unlike anything they had ever seen. The vessels were elegant, organic-looking, and clearly built by a highly advanced civilization. "Unknown ships. This is Commander Sarah Wells of the Earth vessel Pioneer," she had transmitted, hoping their universal translators would work. "We come in peace and seek dialogue." The response came back in perfect English, which was their first surprise. "Commander Wells, we have been watching your species with great interest since your exile from the Council. I am Ambassador Velnock of the Kethron Republic. We would very much like to meet you." That meeting changed the course of human history. The Kethron were just one of 17 species that had been rejected by the Council over the centuries. Some had been deemed too independent. Others were called technologically disruptive. A few were rejected simply because they asked too many questions. The Council fears innovation, Velnock had explained during their first formal meeting. They prefer stable, predictable civilizations that will follow their ancient ways without question. Species like yours and mine represent change, and change terrifies them. The Kethron had been exiled 300 years earlier for refusing to share their defensive technology with the Council. In those centuries, they had developed sciences that made Council knowledge look primitive. They had learned to bend space and time, to create energy from nothing, and to build materials stronger than anything in known space. "We propose an alliance," Velnock had said. "Your species has something we have long sought, the ability to unite different peoples under a common cause. Together, we could build something the galaxy has never seen." News of the alliance spread quickly through human space. Other exploration teams made contact with more exiled species. The Mordak were warrior poets who had been cast out for their aggressive culture, but they turned out to be brilliant tactical thinkers. The Yithrani were master engineers who had been rejected for refusing to limit their technological advancement. Each species had their own story of Council rejection, but they all shared one thing in common. They were innovators who refused to accept limits on what they could become. Captain Nina Walsh commanded the exploration vessel Horizon when she made first contact with the Zeth Kari. These beings existed as pure energy contained within crystalline shells, and their computing abilities were beyond anything humans had imagined. Within weeks of meeting them, human ships were equipped with navigation systems that could plot courses through dimensions the Council didn't even know existed. But the most shocking discovery came from Captain Ben Carter aboard the science ship, Explorer. His team had detected massive structures hidden in the darkness between stars, ancient automated shipyards left behind by a civilization that had vanished millions of years ago. "The installations are responding to our approach," Carter reported back to Earth Command. "It's like they were waiting for someone with our specific technological signature." When human engineers finally gained access to the ancient yards, they found technology so advanced it seemed like magic. The shipyards could build vessels from raw materials gathered from space itself. The ships they produced were living things, able to repair themselves, adapt to any situation, and grow stronger through experience. Dr. Ford worked day and night with teams of scientists from multiple species to understand the ancient technology. What they learned was staggering. The civilization that built the yards had been like humanity, curious, innovative, always pushing the boundaries of what was possible. They had been destroyed by something the records called the Stagnant Ones, beings who feared change and wanted to keep the galaxy locked in an eternal status quo. "The Council," Ford whispered when she realized the truth. "The Council destroyed them, just like they tried to destroy us." As news of these discoveries spread through the Alliance, ships began rolling out of the ancient yards. These vessels were unlike anything that had ever existed. They could appear and disappear at will, travel between galaxies, and survive attacks that would destroy entire fleets of Council ships. Commander Turner's ship Defiance was one of the first to be built using the ancient technology. As he watched his crew work with equipment that seemed to respond to their thoughts, he felt a mixture of excitement and grim determination. The Council had exiled humanity thinking they were removing a threat. Instead, they had freed the One, species capable of uniting the galaxy's greatest innovators and unlocking technology that made Council power look like a joke. "Set course for the rendezvous point," Turner ordered. "It's time to show our new allies what we've built together." The age of hiding was almost over. Soon, the Council would learn what they had created when they cast humanity into the darkness. The space station called Haven floated in the darkness between Council territory and the growing sphere of human influence. Built in just 18 months using new construction methods that seemed to defy physics, it served as the meeting place for species that had been cast out from galactic society. The station was massive, easily 10 times larger than anything the Council had ever built, and it pulsed with energy that came from sources the Council couldn't even detect. Ambassador Kate Morrison walked through corridors filled with beings the Council had labeled as dangerous or unworthy. The air hummed with dozens of different languages, all being translated in real time by systems far more advanced than anything she had used during her years at the Council. Every step she took reminded her of how much had changed since that terrible day when humanity was exiled. In the great meeting hall at the station's center, representatives from 43 different species had gathered. Some she recognized from the old Council databases, species that had been rejected decades or centuries ago. Others were completely new discoveries, civilizations that had been hiding in remote corners of the galaxy to avoid Council attention. Kate stood at the center of the circular chamber, her voice carrying clearly to every delegate without need for amplification. "The Council made a grave mistake when they cast us out," she began. "They believed exile would make us weak and scattered. Instead, they freed us to become everything they feared we might be." Fleet Admiral Ryan Blake appeared as a hologram beside her, broadcasting from the command ship Ascendant, somewhere in deep space. His image showed a man who had grown confident and determined during the years of exile. Behind him, the bridge, of his ship displayed technology that would have made council engineers weep with envy. In 7 years, we have built what the council claimed was impossible, Blake said, a true alliance of equals, sharing knowledge and resources without the fear and restrictions that held us back for so long. The holographic display above them showed a 3-dimensional map of their combined territories. What had once been empty, space on council charts now blazed with the lights of thriving worlds, massive shipyards, and defensive networks that spanned multiple star systems. Admiral Blake gestured to the display. Our trade routes now carry goods and ideas the council never imagined. Our defensive systems protect not just individual worlds, but entire civilizations. Our exploration fleets have discovered wonders in parts of the galaxy the council declared too dangerous to visit. A pulse of pure light came from one corner of the chamber. This was how the Zethkari communicated when they were excited or pleased. The energy being within its crystalline shell had been working with human scientists for months, and their collaboration had produced computing systems that could process information faster than entire council networks. The combination of our species' abilities exceeds all previous calculations, the Zethkari representative transmitted. Human adaptability, Kethran engineering precision, Mordak tactical thinking, and our computational power have created synergies that multiply our individual strengths. Dr. Lisa Ford's voice joined the meeting from Earth's Orbital Research Complex, a structure so large it could be seen with the naked eye from the planet's surface. "We've achieved breakthrough after breakthrough," she reported. "Quantum tunneling, drives that make our ships effectively untouchable, self-repairing hull materials that grow stronger under attack, and artificial intelligence systems that make council computers look like pocket calculators." But the real game changer had come through humanity's greatest strength, their ability to make friends and bring different groups together. Captain Nina Walsh had proven this during her first contact with the Yithrani, a species of master engineers, who had been hiding from the council for over 200 years. The Yithrani had developed shield technology so advanced they could protect their entire star system from detection. When council scouts came looking for new worlds to control, they found nothing but empty space where the Yithrani civilization actually thrived. But they had been alone for so long, they had almost forgotten how to trust other species. "Your people are different," the Yithrani engineer Kexmara had told Walsh during their first meeting. "The council demanded we share our secrets and give up our independence. You offer partnership and mutual respect." Within months, human ships carried Yithrani shields that could absorb enemy fire and convert it into power for their own systems. In return, human manufacturing techniques helped the Yithrani build ships faster than they had ever thought possible. The Mordak had been even more suspicious at first. These warrior poets had been exiled because the council found their culture too aggressive and unpredictable. But when they met human Marines, they discovered a kinship based on honor, courage, and the willingness to fight for what was right. Captain Dale Brooks had been the first human to earn a Mordak battle name, something no outsider had achieved in their recorded history. His tactical innovations, combined with Mordak combat philosophy, created military units that became legendary even in whispered rumors across the galaxy. "The Council fears us because we represent change," announced the Mordak war leader Thekvar, his voice carrying the rhythm of their ancient battle songs. "They built their power on keeping everyone weak and divided. We prove that cooperation makes us all stronger." But it was Captain Ben Carter's continued exploration of the ancient shipyards that provided the foundation for everything they had built. His science vessel Explorer had been working with the automated systems for 3 years now, slowly unlocking secrets that stretched back millions of years. "The installations aren't just shipyards," Carter reported during the meeting. "They're repositories of knowledge from a civilization that faced the same choice we're facing now. They could submit to the forces of stagnation, or they could fight for the right to grow and explore and become more than they were." The ancient records told a story that chilled everyone who heard it. Long ago, there had been a galactic community, much like the current council, but it was ruled by beings who believed the galaxy had reached its peak. They called themselves the Eternal Order, and they worked to stop all change, all growth, all innovation that might threaten their control. Species that refused to submit were destroyed. Entire civilizations were wiped out for the crime of asking questions or developing new technologies. The beings who built the shipyards had been among the last to resist, and they had hidden their greatest achievements in the hope that someday someone worthy would find them. "We are their inheritors," Dr. Ford explained to the assembled delegates. "Every ship we build using their technology, every breakthrough we make using their knowledge, proves that their sacrifice was not in vain." The meeting was interrupted by an urgent transmission from Captain Amy Foster aboard the Alliance vessel Retribution. Her ship was one of the new generation built entirely from ancient yard technology, and it was currently patrolling the border. "Between Alliance and Council space." "Council patrol fleet approaching," Foster reported. 6 heavy cruisers, moving in standard intimidation formation. "They're broadcasting demands that we identify ourselves and submit to inspection." "Admiral." Blake's hologram smiled grimly. "Denied. Show them what we've become." The delegates watched through the station's sensors as Foster's single ship engaged the Council patrol. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted less than 10 minutes. The Retribution simply absorbed every shot the Council ships fired, then redirected that energy back at them with interest. Within minutes, the entire Council fleet was dead in space, their systems overloaded and their hulls cracked. "Pursuit, Captain?" Foster asked. "Negative," Blake replied. "Let them drift home and tell their masters what they've seen. Fear will do more damage to the Council than any weapon we could use." As the meeting resumed, the mood had shifted from cautious optimism to quiet confidence. They weren't just building an alliance anymore. They were creating something that could challenge the Council's control over the entire galaxy. Kate looked around the chamber at beings from dozens of worlds, all working together toward a common goal. The Council had tried to keep them weak by keeping them apart. Now they were stronger together than any of them could have been alone. "The age of exile is ending," she announced. "But we're not going back to beg for readmission to the Council. We're going to build something better, something worthy of all the species they've cast aside over the centuries." The response was unanimous, a roar of approval in dozens of different voices, all united in their determination to prove that the galaxy's future belonged to those brave enough to reach for it. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called after reports reached the core worlds that shook the foundations of everything they believed about their power. Prime Arbiter Zeftar stood before the gathered delegates, his ancient face showing worry for the first time in centuries. "The reports cannot be accurate," declared the Veltari military commander, his scales darkening to the deep purple that indicated fear. "Our patrol fleet encountered a single vessel that disabled 6 heavy cruisers without taking any damage. This is impossible using known technology." Commander Kixara of the Hive Mines buzzed with agitation. "Our scouts report massive structures, appearing in previously empty space. Entire star systems that were barren now show signs of advanced civilization. These cannot be human settlements. We exiled them with primitive technology." Zeftar activated the chamber's main display, showing tactical recordings from the encounter with the mysterious ship. The delegates watched in stunned silence as their most advanced warships were rendered helpless by weapons that seemed to bend the laws of physics. "The vessel absorbed our energy weapons completely," reported the surviving patrol commander. "Then it redirected that same energy back at us with 10 times the original force. Our shields might as well have been made of paper." What the Council didn't know was that Captain Amy Foster of the Alliance vessel Retribution was watching their emergency session through surveillance systems they couldn't detect. Her ship hung invisible in space just outside the Council station, recording everything for later analysis. "They're scared," observed Commander Dale Brooks from the tactical station. "Look at their body language. These are beings who haven't faced a real threat in thousands of years." Foster nodded as she watched the Council debate what to do about the mysterious new ships appearing throughout the galaxy. "Send a message to Admiral Blake," Tell him the Council is preparing to increase patrols along our borders. They're looking for answers they won't like when they find them. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Jack Coleman met with the Alliance Council in the massive orbital city called New Geneva. The structure dwarfed anything in Council space, its biomechanical architecture, a perfect fusion of technologies from dozens of species. Through its transparent walls, Earth looked small and blue below, a reminder of how far humanity had come since their exile. Our reconnaissance missions have mapped every major Council installation, reported Admiral Blake, his image appearing as a hologram in the center of the circular chamber. Their military response to our presence has been predictable and inadequate. Dr. Lisa Ford stood at a control panel, her fingers dancing over holographic displays that showed technical readouts beyond anything the Council had ever achieved. The ancient shipyards have revealed more of their secrets. What we've learned changes everything we thought we knew about galactic history. The main display showed a star chart covering thousands of light years, but this wasn't the familiar map the Council used. Instead, it revealed the true structure of galactic civilization, not the neat, controlled territories the Council claimed, but a complex web of hidden civilizations, suppressed technologies, and forgotten histories. The shipyards weren't just built by one species, Dr. Ford explained. They were created by an alliance of 12 different civilizations, all working together to preserve knowledge that the Eternal Order was trying to destroy. Captain Stephen Hayes had discovered this truth during his deep reconnaissance mission into Council core space. His stealth ship Shadow had spent months moving through the most heavily guarded systems in the galaxy, invisible to sensors that couldn't detect technology they didn't understand. The breakthrough came when Hayes located the ruins of Eternity. Prime, the original homeworld of the Council's founding species. What he found there turned galactic history upside down. The Council's own records tell a very different story than the one they teach, Hayes reported from his hidden position in the system. The original Council wasn't a peaceful alliance. They were conquerors who absorbed or destroyed every innovative species they encountered. The data Hayes recovered painted a picture of systematic oppression stretching back tens of thousands of years. The beings who founded the Council had been afraid of change, afraid of losing their power to younger, more creative species. So they built a system designed to crush innovation wherever it appeared. Every species that showed too much curiosity, developed too quickly, or asked too many questions was either forced to submit completely or was eliminated, Dr. Ford read from the recovered records. The current Council members are just the descendants of those who gave up their independence to avoid destruction. Commander Lisa Park had made similar discoveries during her reconnaissance of Council military installations. Her findings showed that the Council's mighty fleets were built using technology that hadn't been updated in centuries. They had grown complacent, relying on their reputation rather than actual strength. Their weapons are antiques, Park reported. Their shields use principles we mastered 5 years ago. Their ships are slower than our oldest designs. They've been coasting on ancient achievements while suppressing anyone who might threaten their supremacy. The Kethron mathematician Zixvac had run the calculations, and the results were staggering. If current trends continue, Alliance technological advancement will exceed total Council capabilities within 18 months. They cannot match our rate of innovation because their entire system is designed to prevent innovation. But the most shocking revelation came from the ancient shipyard databases themselves. The artificial intelligence that controlled the yards had been analyzing galactic civilization for millions of years, waiting for a species that could truly utilize their creator's legacy. The shipyards chose us, Dr. Ford announced to the stunned Alliance Council. Not just humanity, but all of us. Every species in this alliance was identified by the ancient systems as having the potential to break free from the cycle of stagnation that has gripped the galaxy. The implications were enormous. The exile hadn't been a punishment. It had been a test. The Council, without knowing it, had been following a pattern established by their predecessors. They exiled species that showed too much independence, too much creativity. Too much potential for growth. We represent something the Council has spent millennia trying to prevent, Kate Morrison said, her voice filled with quiet determination. We're proof that cooperation and innovation are stronger than control and stagnation. Admiral Blake's fleet had been conducting exercises near Council space, testing their new ships against simulated Council tactics. The results were so one-sided, they were almost embarrassing. A single Alliance vessel could defeat entire Council squadrons without sustaining damage. They're not warriors, Blake observed during one of these exercises. They're bureaucrats with weapons. They've forgotten how to fight because they've never faced real opposition. The Mordak war leader Thekvar agreed completely. The Council has made their soldiers soft with centuries of easy victories against weaker opponents. They have never faced an enemy that could match their strength, let alone exceed it. As reports continued to flow in from reconnaissance missions, throughout Council space, a clear picture emerged. The Galactic Council was a hollow shell, maintaining power through reputation and fear rather than actual capability. Their technology was outdated, their military was unprepared, and their leadership was paralyzed by the impossible reality of facing opponents they couldn't understand or defeat. The question isn't whether we can challenge the Council, President Coleman said during the final session of their strategic planning meeting. The question is what we do with the power vacuum we'll create when their authority collapses. Dr. Ford brought up displays showing projections of what would happen if the Council fell suddenly. Chaos would spread across dozens of star systems, as suppressed civilizations rose up against their oppressors. Trade networks that had existed for millennia would collapse. Wars that had been held in check by Council authority would explode across entire sectors. We can't just tear down their system, Kate Morrison observed. We have to be ready to build something better in its place. The Alliance had grown beyond anything they had originally imagined. What started as a group of exiled species had become a coalition of the galaxy's most innovative civilizations, united by their refusal to accept limits on what they could become. The Council created us by trying to destroy us, Admiral Blake said. They gave us the motivation to become everything they feared we might be. Now we have the power to reshape the galaxy itself. The age of the Council was ending, but the Alliance, leaders knew their real work was just beginning. They had built not just a fleet, but the foundation of a new galactic civilization based on cooperation, innovation, and the endless potential of species working together toward a common goal. The final confrontation never came as anyone expected. Instead of a massive battle or violent uprising, it began with a simple transmission that reached every civilized world in the galaxy at the same moment. President Jack Coleman's image appeared on screens from the Council's core worlds to the most remote outposts, his voice calm but carrying the weight of absolute certainty. "Citizens of the galaxy," he began, looking directly into the camera as if speaking to each viewer personally. "For thousands of years, you have been told that the Council represents order, peace, and progress. Today, we reveal the truth that has been hidden from you." The broadcast that followed included evidence that shook the foundations of galactic civilization. Ancient records showing how the Council had systematically destroyed innovative species, suppressed technological advancement, and built their power on the ruins of civilizations that dared to dream of something better. But more importantly, it showed what the Exile Alliance had accomplished in just 8 years of freedom. Captain Alex Turner stood on the bridge of the flagship Ascendant as it emerged from dimensional space above the Council's primary world. His ship was no longer alone. Around him, a fleet of vessels appeared simultaneously above every major Council planet, their arrival so perfectly coordinated that it seemed like magic. These ships moved through space like living things, their hulls rippling with energy that came from sources the Council couldn't even detect. They didn't travel between stars. They danced through dimensions that Council science insisted didn't exist. Their very presence announced that the age of Council dominance was over. All Council vessels are maintaining their distance, reported Lieutenant Maya Cross from her station. They're not even trying to approach us. Turner wasn't surprised. A single Alliance ship had already proven it could disable entire Council fleets without taking damage. Now they faced hundreds of vessels that made that first encounter look like a gentle demonstration. The response from Council worlds was swift and unprecedented. Within hours of the broadcast, 12 Council member species formally requested to join the Alliance. Not as conquered territories, but as equal partners contributing their unique abilities to a civilization built on cooperation rather than control. The Veltari were among the first to make contact. Their military commander, the same one who had argued for humanity's exile years earlier, appeared on screens across Alliance space, with scales that had changed to colors indicating deep respect and submission. "We were wrong about your species," he admitted during a live transmission to Kate Morrison aboard the diplomatic vessel Harmony. "We thought you sought conquest and domination. Instead, you have shown us what true strength looks like. The power to unite rather than divide, to build rather than destroy." Kate accepted their request for membership with the same grace she had shown during her years as Earth's ambassador to the Council. "Every species deserves the chance to reach their full potential," she said. "The Alliance exists to help each other become everything we can be." Similar scenes played out across the galaxy as species that had been trapped in the Council's rigid system for centuries suddenly found themselves free to explore, innovate, and grow. The technological advances that followed defied every prediction. Dr. Lisa Ford worked with research teams from dozens of species, finally free to pursue knowledge without the artificial limitations that had held them back for so long. The breakthroughs came so fast that her staff could barely keep track of them all. "We're not just building better ships or weapons," she explained during a joint scientific conference that included representatives from over 60 species. "We're redefining what civilization itself can become." The ancient shipyards had revealed their final secrets to the Alliance, and what they learned changed everything. The mysterious installations hadn't been built by a dead civilization at all. They had been created by the first species to reject the Council's control, beings who had then transcended physical existence rather than submit to stagnation. "They left these gifts for us," Ford announced to the assembled scientists. "Every ship we build, every breakthrough we make, proves that their sacrifice wasn't in vain. But the most remarkable transformation happened not through technology, but through the simple act of species learning to work together as equals." Captain Nina Walsh watched this process unfold as she helped coordinate the integration of new Alliance members. The Zethkari energy beings shared their computational abilities with organic species who had never imagined such processing power. The Kethran engineers worked alongside human designers to create structures that seemed to grow rather than being built. The Mordak warrior poets found their battle songs being adapted into peaceful ceremonies that celebrated courage and honor in all its forms. Prime Arbiter Zeftar, the ancient being who had pronounced humanity's exile, requested a private meeting with President Coleman. The encounter took place aboard the Ascendant, with the old Council leader appearing smaller and more fragile than he had in the Great Council chambers. "We knew this day would come eventually," Zeftar admitted, his voice carrying the weight of millennia. "Some of us even hoped it would. The Council had become a prison for all of us, but we lacked the courage to break free from our own system." Coleman listened with the patience of someone who understood that even former enemies deserved compassion. "The Alliance isn't here to punish the Council," he said. "We're here to offer everyone the chance to be part of something better." The transformation of galactic civilization took less than 2 years. The rigid hierarchies that had governed space for thousands of years were replaced by flexible networks of cooperation that grew stronger through diversity rather than uniformity. The old council structures were converted into research centers, cultural exchange hubs, and launching points for exploration missions that pushed the boundaries of known space. Captain Amy Foster, now commanding one of the most advanced ships ever built, led the first expedition beyond the galactic rim. Her daughter, Maria, born on one of the new Alliance worlds, would grow up in a universe where the word impossible had lost all meaning. "Mama, why do the old records talk about species being afraid of each other?" Maria asked during one of their family video calls. Foster smiled as she looked at her daughter, who was growing up speaking a hybrid language that emerged naturally as dozens of species worked together, because they forgot that we're all stronger when we help each other reach for the stars. The child's next question came in that mixed language, words from human English blending seamlessly with Kethron technical terms and Mordak expressions of determination. It was the sound of a new kind of civilization being born. Kate Morrison stood in the observation deck of New Geneva, the massive space city that had become the Alliance capital, watching ships from 100 different species working together to construct humanity's greatest achievement yet, a gateway that would allow exploration of other galaxies entirely. The project represented everything the Alliance had become. Human innovation provided the theoretical framework. Kethron engineering made it structurally possible. Zethkari computing power handled the massive calculations required. Yitharani shields protected the construction from the dangerous energies involved, and dozens of other species contributed their own unique abilities to make the impossible become real. As she watched the gateway take shape, Kate reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. 8 years ago, the Council had exiled humanity believing they were removing a dangerous element from galactic society. Instead, they had freed the one species capable of showing the galaxy what it could truly become, when every being was allowed to reach their full potential. The Council had feared that humanity would build an empire through conquest and domination. They were right about the empire part, but wrong about everything else. Earth hadn't conquered the galaxy, they had liberated it. They hadn't built their power through fear and oppression. They had earned it through cooperation and mutual respect. The Age of Exile was over, but it had been replaced by something far greater. The Age of Infinite Possibility had begun, and the universe itself had become their domain to explore and cherish together. When the first ships passed through the completed gateway into another galaxy, they carried with them representatives from every species in the Alliance, not as conquerors seeking new worlds to control, but as explorers eager to discover what new friends they might find among the stars. The message they broadcast as they emerged into unknown space was simple but profound. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and friendship. Our galaxy has learned that we are all stronger when we stand together. We hope yours will join us in reaching for something greater than any of us could achieve alone. Behind them, the Milky Way continued to transform under Alliance guidance, becoming not just a collection of worlds and species, but a true galactic civilization where every being had the chance to become everything they were meant to be. Humanity had been exiled for being too ambitious, too curious, too unwilling to accept limits. In the end, those same qualities had made them the catalyst for the greatest transformation in galactic history. The stars themselves seemed brighter now, filled with the light of infinite possibility.